Hi there, and welcome back to this channel if you have been here before, or welcome if you are new. I'm Sándor, and I'm here to talk about my eating disorder recovery and anything else that's related to the topic. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional or a therapist. I only talk about my recovery because I believe it can be helpful to hear that other people went through the same stuff you are going through and they came out the other end. Keep in mind that these are just my opinions and experiences. Nothing I say is meant to be prescriptive. Some of the things that work for me could work for you as well, but recovery takes some experimentation, and you need to be in charge of that. This time I will talk about how I healed my relationship with exercise in my eating disorder recovery, and I think it's important to talk about this because this can be a tricky thing to do, since the right amount of exercise and the right forms of exercise are obviously healthy for you. However, we are constantly bombarded with messages about how we should approach exercise, what is the right amount of exercise, and since you can burn calories through exercise, that can be used to, sabotage yourself in your recovery. I think how exercise is portrayed in the media and social media is very performance focused. You have to run an extra mile, or you have to lift heavier weights, or just, push through the discomfort you may feel during exercise. Basically, you have to be this beast in the gym instead of actually listening to your body and its signals. So because of this approach to exercise, some recovery-sabotaging behaviors are normalized. These behaviors may seem harmless, at least on the surface. For example, compensating for a big meal you ate, or earning the right to eat dessert or, some fattening food. By earning it, I mean exercising extra hard so you can actually eat that food. Another example of these behaviors would be, as I mentioned, pushing through the discomfort you may feel during exercise, because that clearly shows how badass you are. Another thing that makes it tricky to heal your relationship with exercise is the fact that exercise in the right amount is obviously good for you. No one in their right mind would debate that. But what the right amount is and what you use exercise for is tricky to figure out, and that's why you have to be totally honest with yourself. I know I already mentioned this, but I would like to reiterate it. Many people use exercise to compensate for something they ate, and a lot of these people can get away with it. But if you are someone who is recovering from an eating disorder, as long as you do this, you simply can't recover fully. You won't be able to experience true freedom around food. Exercise and your eating are intertwined because obviously you use food to fuel your exercise, but on the other hand, you can burn calories through exercise, and that is what you can abuse if you are not honest with yourself. It's easy to convince yourself that you are exercising for your physical and mental health. I was definitely in denial about this in the early stages of my recovery. I felt like I managed to get the eating part of recovery right, and I thought I experienced true freedom around food because, I no longer did these calculations in my head about how much calories I consumed in a day and how much do I need to exercise to burn off the excess calories. I no longer had fear foods, and I genuinely forget the exact calorie content of the foods that I was eating. But even if I stopped with these calculations in my head about how many calories I consumed in a day and how much do I need to exercise to, just to be on the safe side and burn off any excess calories that made their way into my diet, I was still sticking to a predetermined exercise schedule that I thought would allow me to eat as much as I wanted, whatever I wanted, and whenever I wanted it. Since that is something that a lot of people without an eating disorder do, it was hard to admit and see that this is disordered, and it was even harder to accept that all those people without an eating disorder history can get away with it, but for me, this is actually something that will keep me from recover fully. So this was getting in the way of my recovery because what looked like flexibility on the surface, flexibility around food, was still based on rigidity, that flexibility was possible because of this rigidity around exercise. What helped me to realize that there was something to unpack here is the fact that I got anxious if I couldn't exercise for a couple of days. Having a rest day was fine, even having 2 consecutive rest days was fine by me, but anything more than that, and I started to become anxious. A lot of things can make you anxious. So it took me some time to recognize that there's a pattern here and figure out what actually makes me anxious in these scenarios. Okay, so after that long-winded intro, here comes what I actually did to heal my relationship with exercise. Some of this is based on a video by an eating disorder recovery coach, so I will put the link to that video in the description. The first thing I did was making a commitment to be honest with myself about my motivation and intention behind exercise. Easier said than done. I decided that whenever I was about to go on a run or engage in any other form of exercise, I would ask myself why I wanted to exercise in the first place and how I would feel if I skipped that exercise session. If the thought of not being able to exercise made me anxious, I still tried to skip that exercise session and journal or practice some other form of self-care instead. I also allowed myself to stop mid-exercise if I wasn't feeling it or I wasn't present in my body. I gave myself permission not to push through the discomfort that I may feel during exercise. Or, stop exercising if I realized that I wasn't honest with myself about my motivation for exercising. Basically, I started listening to my body and its signals, and I also started paying more attention to how I felt before, during, and after an exercise session. So when I started doing this in the beginning, I still wasn't completely honest with myself, 100% of the time regarding my motivation. And there were times when I didn't admit to myself that my reasons for engaging in exercise were unhealthy. And I just want to go on a run because I want to compensate for something that I ate. So this whole process didn't start to work immediately, and there was no linear progress in this. I still engaged in exercise when I shouldn't have in the beginning, but with time I was able to stop myself from going on a run when I wanted to use running to compensate for something. So progress in this scenario looked like, maybe in the beginning I managed to admit to myself mid-run that I'm exercising to compensate for something, and I managed to stop myself from, finishing that exercise session. And over time, I managed to put on my running gear, walk to the running track, and admit to myself that, okay, wait a minute, there's something unhealthy going on here when it comes to your motivation for running. And I was able to, just walk for a while instead of running. And then I got to a point when I maybe still put on my running gear, and I was about to get to the running field when I realized that I'm doing the same thing. So I managed to turn back without any kind of exercise that day. And I got to a point when I still put on my running gear and, headed for the running field. But maybe in the elevator, I managed to turn it around and turn around and go back and do something else instead of engaging in exercise. And eventually, I got better at determining when my body wanted to move and, what kind of movement felt good to me and what forms of exercise allowed me to be present in my body. How can I move my body in a way that leaves me feel good and energized instead of half dead and drained? Eventually, I stopped running altogether, and the reason for that is the fact that running is a common precursor to a relapse, so I didn't want to play with fire. And on the other hand, I also realized that I don't like running at all. I used to run to numb my emotions, and I used the pain inside of me to fuel my running. And once I worked through that pain, and once I allowed myself to actually feel my emotions, and once I learned how to manage and regulate my emotions, I was left with no fuel for running. I used to be so detached from my body and so zoned out during running that I never noticed that it didn't feel good. I didn't feel good while I was running. So when I started to pay attention to how running felt, I realized it wasn't a nice experience and I wasn't having fun with it. So the next logical step for me in this whole process of healing my relationship with exercise was finding other forms of movement that I enjoy. Things that feel good doing, things that allow me to be present in my body and leave me feeling good and energized. And these things initially included going to dance classes and movement meditation classes. By movement meditation, I mean 5 rhythms classes, a form of movement meditation that helped me connect to my emotions and express them through physical movement while I was around other people who were doing the same. I think this particular form of movement is great because it encourages you to explore the way how your body wants to move and explore authentic movement patterns, and it helps you to express and process your emotions through these movement patterns. And the great thing about it is really that it helps you to connect with your body, which I was desperately in need of, because during the years I spent in my eating disorder, I became totally detached from my body. And I will be the first to admit that in the beginning I chose to engage in these forms of exercise because they felt safe in a way. And by that I mean I knew I could burn calories, a lot of calories, by attending these movement classes. Still, the fact that these movement meditation classes allows you to reconnect with your body and do it in a way where you are surrounded with people who do the same thing, so you don't have to be self-conscious about it allowed me to be present with my emotions, be present in my body. It helped me shift the focus from burning calories while I was exercising to being mindfully present in this practice and being mindfully present when I was engaging in other forms of exercise as well. Another thing I had to work on while I was healing my relationship with exercise was my body image. I found that back in the day, when I had a terrible body image day, I tend to use exercise to punish myself and try to control how my body looked. And the punishment was kind of proportional to the discomfort and dissatisfaction I felt about my body. And no matter how my body changed through exercise and certain unhealthy behaviors, my body image would not improve. It just got worse. And funnily enough, improving my body image allowed me to respect and care for my body more instead of treating it as the enemy. And this also meant I no longer needed to subject my body to rigorous exercise that didn't feel good. I feel like when we talk about body image and improving our body image, we often just throw around this word without defining it. So when I talk about body image, I refer to the body as a psychological experience. And I think it's important to define what body image means and what it is, because when it comes to improving our body image or trying to improve our body image, you need to understand and separate the 3 aspects of your body image: your perception, your attitude, and your behaviors. Perception is basically what you see in the mirror, and this can be distorted, especially if you are struggling with an eating disorder. An example of this would be you look in the mirror and you perceive your body as fat, even though you are in an average weight range. And please don't be offended by the fact that I use the word fat. I don't think there is anything wrong with living in a larger body, but fat is how people with an eating disorder usually refer to themselves if they perceive their body bigger than they would like it to be. So this distorted perception can make you see yourself differently from how others see you and cause feelings of low self-esteem and dissatisfaction with your body. This process is the attitude aspect of your body image. The thoughts, beliefs, and feelings you have based on your perception. Your attitude is basically the meaning you make of your perception. If you believe that being thin is essential for being accepted and worthy, you will likely feel, or you will likely hold the attitude that if you don't achieve the ideal body, you are unworthy. This attitude can lead to negative self-talk and unrealistic expectations, causing you to be dissatisfied with your body, even if you manage to lose weight and make your body more societally acceptable. Then the third aspect, the behavior aspect of your body image, refers to the actions you take based on your perception and attitude toward your body. If you feel dissatisfied with your body and believe you need to lose weight to be happy or worthy, you will likely engage in a myriad of unhealthy behaviors, such as purging your food or starving yourself. We can feel and perceive a lot of things about our bodies, even if we have a good body image, even if we have healed our body image. And I think it's important to point out that it is unrealistic to expect only positive perceptions and attitudes regarding bodies all the time. Even if you are recovered, you will still have negative body image days, but your attitude and behavior have changed, so you won't do anything distracting about it. You will have learned healthier ways to deal with your perception. What I'm trying to say here is, regardless of our eating disorder history or lack thereof, most of us have bad body image days. However, it is our behavior and what we actually do about our thoughts and feelings that will get us into trouble. Your perception can take, and likely will take, a long time to change. So at least in the beginning, focusing on your attitude and behavior is probably a better approach to improving your body image, and you will likely have more success if you focus on your attitude and behavior. If you look in the mirror and you see yourself as fat, you can try to convince yourself that you are not fat. You can, receive feedback from others and reassurance that you are not fat, but it goes against your perception, so you won't believe it. And if it comes from others, you will likely think that they just want to make you feel better about yourself. So it's not going to work. You should focus on improving your attitude and behavior, and once you have improved those, your perception of your body will likely follow. For example, actively working to stop comparing yourself to others, learning to accept your natural size and shape, being grateful for what your body can do for you, and you can learn how to challenge and reframe negative thoughts about your body by asking, so what? For example, if you perceive your thighs as too big, you can respond to this thought by telling yourself, so what? My thighs are strong and they help me move and get shit done. When it comes to affirmations and healthy statements about your body, or about anything else in general, really, it is important to come up with statements you believe in and feel authentic. I think it's important to point out that when you try to come up with these statements, they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be a bit kinder, a bit healthier, or a bit more neutral compared to how you used to talk to yourself. It's going to be a journey. The important thing is to meet yourself where you are. Be a little kinder to yourself every time, so eventually you can get to a healthy place. In addition to this so what method, what really helped improve my body image was deconstructing how I thought about certain body types, the attractiveness and worth of certain body types. And I think that's a topic worth exploring, because when you shift your focus from the superficial stuff and when you find meaning and worth in other things, that makes the concerns about how your body looks kind of irrelevant. So I guess what I wanted to say in this video is that healing my relationship with food and experiencing true food freedom, and this time true is without quotation marks, required me to heal my relationship with exercise as well. As I said, these two things are intertwined because you use food to fuel your exercise, but at the same time, you burn the calories that you consume with food through exercise, and that's something that you can use against yourself in your recovery. And that's exactly why you have to be brutally honest with yourself when it comes to your motivation and intentions behind exercise. You can't experience true freedom around food without having an intuitive relationship with exercise, and you cannot recover fully if you still try to use exercise as a form of control. Okay, that's all I had to say about the topic today. Subscribe to the channel or like the video and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. As always, I hope you will have a great day, or at least a reasonable one if you are going through something difficult.